Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Apartment Guys podcast, soon to be the Apartment Gurus podcast, thanks to the joining of Chelsea Garber, my trusted partner in crime with Greenlight. She has joined me every other episode and is co-hosting. So we can't be the Apartment Guys anymore. So as soon as we get our artwork and everything done, we're going to be changing the name, and but I don't mind making that announcement now. So pretty exciting stuff happening. We're doing 2 episodes a week now instead of just 1 like we've always done. And one of the episodes will always be an expert in the field, a guest expert that has brought a real high level of success and can really bring a lot of value to you guys, the listeners, and myself. So that's really been the format so far. When Chelsea and I get together, often it'll just be the 2 of us, and we'll kind of be chatting about current stuff going on with us and creating value for you by sharing our experiences with you as we continue to do lots of deals here in the commercial multifamily space. Today, I'm really excited because I've got Mr. Josh Zieglowsky on the show. Josh and I met through, I don't know, Josh, I feel like I met you before we were at the Tim Brott's MASTERMIND together. But I feel like we, our paths have crossed, but Josh and I were in the same mastermind group with Mr. Tim Brott, who I mentioned on the show before, a mentor of ours, a mentor of mine, and just a great thought leader in this space. And Josh has really been crushing it for a while in the commercial space. And I'm really glad to bring him on the show because I think he's going to have a lot of valuable experience and knowledge and wisdom in the space. So Josh, welcome to the show, man. I'm really glad to have you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah. I mean, that's where we first met, through Tim Brott's, our mutual, one of my mentors, and mutual friend of ours, obviously, and mentor of yours. Yeah. And then later on, I don't know if you know this, but for a while there, I was always playing cards with Tim Waukee. So, and then, he mentioned that he's been doing some stuff with you because, I talked to Tim about real estate a while back. He wasn't investing outside of Utah for the most part. Now he's really open to it. And I think you're the one that kind of, made him look outside the box with that. So great job.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Tim Waukee is one of our key principals that we partner with on deals. I think we're in 5 or 6 deals with him now. And like you said, Josh, he's in deals with us in Ohio and Oklahoma City. We did just finish a Utah project up with him that went full cycle. But Tim's a great guy. Obviously, he's a huge maven in the Salt Lake City apartment space. I forget what his portfolio is, like 180,000 now, or 180 million now, and has few thousand doors, I believe. So it's been really fun to work with Tim, and I'm sure it's fun to play cards with him too.
It is. It's fun to take his money.
I was going to say, so you're talking poker?
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. That's way fun.
Yeah, it is. It is tons of fun. It's mostly just to hang out for 3-4 hours as guys and girls. There's plenty. There's been women there for sure, but I don't want the women to think that we're sexist and don't invite them. So.
Yeah. Well, cool. So Josh, if you wouldn't mind just kind of sharing with the listeners and myself kind of your story, your backstory, and how you got into real estate, what the kind of key moments in that were, and then we'll have you share a little bit about what you're doing now too.
Yeah, thanks, Tate. Yeah, so I've been a little bit about myself. The quick minute or two overview is I've been a real estate investor for, it's coming up on 20 years. Next year will be 20 years. Right now it's 19. My first mentor is a guy named Jeff Rappaport. I went to his class, learned how to do wholesales, rehabs for years. And about 7-8 years ago, I was at a closing, and I ended up talking to this realtor, and he was telling me how his dad left him properties. And that kind of hit me because, at the time I had 2 boys, because I have 4 kids now, and I had 2 boys, and I was thinking, if I die today, I'm just going to leave them a chunk of money, but not like keys to an apartment complex, keys to a commercial building. And I thought, you know what, I want to try to get into this. And I then went to a couple different places, and one guy out of Orlando, I ended up spending $100,000 for his mentorship, and that was a lot of money, right? Now, granted, I definitely got my money back, year and a half, 2 years later. But the one thing that he got me is he got me in the game, because for years I was always thinking about, like, I should do this, I should not do this. I got to have a lot of money to be in commercial real estate, and commercial real estate obviously encompassing apartments, commercial buildings, retail, medical, dental, all that kind of stuff, right? And so I then went a different direction. I then wanted to get more into, and I think a lot of listeners have, maybe they're starting, maybe they're already into this, and I think eventually you'll just kind of know your path. If it's apartments, you'll say, man, I'm just going to stick with apartments. If it's getting into something, then go in a different direction of office or medical. But after about a year or two, you pretty should have that defined. And it took me about 2-3 years. I finally got it defined and said, this is the direction I want to go. I'm not interested in these asset classes. I'm interested in these, and I want to be a professional in these asset classes. I then went that direction, and now I do retail, medical, and dental. I do a little bit of flex industrial, but I mostly just stick into the triple net lease side of things, for my own reasons. And we've had a lot of fun with it. We've done great with it, both in the Utah market. I'm in Utah with you. And then outside of Utah, which, like you've done, there's a lot of opportunities outside of Utah, and there is a lot of opportunities in your backyard as well. And so with that, we concentrate, our goal is to hit about 40 to 50 million a year in purchases. And we try to stick in the range between $1 to about $10 million per purchase.
Okay.
And, we buy out value add. We keep about half our money in cash flow portfolio, and the other half flipping every about 2 to 5 years.
Okay.
So that's really where I've transpired into in the commercial real estate space. And I think about 3 years ago, maybe 4, I read the book Who Not How, and kind of got the mentality of being more of just a real estate guy, being more of an entrepreneur, having other businesses that also create cash flow and appreciation and stuff. And so, but my main passion is commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like you know yourself really well, and you made some decisions early on about direction and like where you were going to put your focus and efforts, and you have clearly chosen something that you love. I mean, we were talking before we started recording, and you used the word passion a couple times about the commercial real estate space. And I think for listeners, I just got I got done reading a book, and I'm going to space the name of it for a second. I'll think of it in a minute, but it was a book that basically debunked this whole idea that you should follow your passion in your work, as opposed to getting really good at something in your work. Because what scientific studies show is that people who are really good and masterful at their craft are generally much happier doing it, and have a lot of passion about it, as opposed to people that kind of, chase their dream to be a yoga teacher, or, something that maybe doesn't pay very well. It's hard. You can get really good at those things, but it's difficult, I think, to get passionate about something that doesn't necessarily love you back, right?
For
So,
sure.
so I think that's super cool that yourself, what you're interested in, what you're doing, and when did you get started in the commercial space, Josh?
See, it's been 7 years,
Yeah,
so probably 2015, end of 2015.
yeah,
It was a slow go. In other words, like I invested, I always say invested, not paid, for education. I invested in education, and it took me about a year and a half, 2 years to, get that first 6-figure amount back as far as the return on investment.
yeah,
And like I said, even if I didn't, it got me in the game to now the opportunity is pretty big for me, and echoing what you're saying, there was 2 things that came to mind. Number one, my 15-year-old, he has a job, like he works 2 days a week for a friend locally. And I wanted him to go through that, getting $8 an hour on where he works, so he can understand what a job is. Because there's times he's like, Dad, I just want to quit my job. And I told him, he goes, why do you love your job? And I said, someone told me a quote 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer, that, how does it go? If you love your job, you don't ever work a day in your life,
yeah,
or something like that. Right.
yeah,
And I said, once I had that mindset, it was, now it's a passion. Now it's something I want to do. I want to wake up. I want to help people. I want to give back, and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that comes to mind is Mark Cuban on Shark Tank about a week ago. I was just watching like an old rerun, and him and Mr. Wonderful got in an argument, like pretty bad. I've never seen it this bad before. And he goes, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. And he stands up, he's walking away to where the executive producer is or something like that. And he goes, because Mr. Wonderful was saying, you guys got to be more truthful with them. You guys got to tell them the truth. He goes, you're trying to ruin their dreams. Like, why are you going to ruin their dreams? He goes, I would rather make $50,000 a year and be my own boss and work 80 to 100 hours a week than have a job for $120,000 at 40 hours a week. That's just me, because that becomes a passion. That's what I want to do. Yeah. Right. And I was like, that hit me pretty hard. Even Mark Cuban's saying that if he'd rather make 40, 50, 60% less of salary, because it's something that he wants to do. So anyways, you said that, and those 2 things came to mind.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk is great on this subject too. Gary V, are you a Gary V guy?
Love Gary V.
Yeah. I mean, he talks about his friends that make 60 grand a year, play in 8 softball leagues, go on 1 vacation a year, and are just as happy as they can be, right? And I think if you're self-employed and you're doing that, I think it's even better, being your own boss. But there's a lot of ways to do life, right? There's a lot of different roles you can play, and not everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody's wired like we are. Chances are, if you're listening to this, you are. But the employee mentality is something that's needed in the world, and serves a purpose and creates a lot of value. So like you said, Josh, you don't have to put together $900 million or $100 million companies or whatever you're working on, and that we'll talk about in a minute, to crush it in life, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, it's ultimately about your happiness level, your satisfaction level, your purpose, your meaning that you create in life. And ideally, I think we all like to be financially successful, or at least financially sound. So I wish that for everybody, no matter what role they're playing. But at the same time, like, I'm with you, dude. I love this job, or whatever you want to call it. I love this business. You know, I was laid up with the flu this last weekend and found myself, you know, sitting around sending emails pretty much all weekend. And I even had a couple of calls. I had a call with an investor group, you know, family office fund over the weekend, and called a couple partners. And, you know, I do it just because it's there and I love to do it. Right. It's kind of like, you know, when you're a guitarist and your guitar is sitting there and you just want to pick up and play it. Like, that's how I feel about our business. And whether it's education, reading books, listening to books, podcasts, etc., or if it's doing the actual business and the mechanics of the business, to me, it's all fun. It's all part of this adventure that we're on that is really exciting. So I'm with you, man. I wake up fired up every day. I'm, you know, typically out of bed around 4:30 or 5, and
that's what I love about hearing people's passion. So
yeah,
you know, so one thing is, like you said, W-2 employees. I actually love when I hear their passion. You know, as far as they don't feel like they have a job because they love it. They love doing what they do, whatever that is. Teaching. I mean, like tomorrow, I'm going to have lunch with my old high school football coach. You know, he's been in football coaching for almost, I think he said 25, 26 years. 30 years is when he can kind of get the best retirement possible. And he's always loved it, you know. And the reason why we were talking and we're having lunch, we were supposed to have lunch today, it's me tomorrow, was he was let go. He was let go. This is like his third high school he's been at. He's won a couple state championships with this school, and they let him go, which was, in my opinion, not a good choice, because I think he's awesome. I think he's not just awesome coach, he is awesome to kids. In other words, look at me, someone that graduated in 1998. So what does that put me at? 22, 24 years ago?
Yeah.
And I still have a personal relationship with my high school football coach. I'm going to lunch with him tomorrow. I would love, and so I actually coach my boys and now my girls here soon. I've always said when I've been coaching them, I would love for their friends to see me at the gas station and say, "Whoa, it's Josh. Remember all that times we did when you were coaching?" I want that relationship 10, 20 years from now as well.
Yeah.
And so that's another passion. And so I love hearing about people's passion, whatever that is.
Yeah. So are you coaching football?
No, basketball. I played a little college basketball.
Okay.
So I've always had that passion. I was actually a better football player than basketball, but that was my passion and my push was basketball.
Okay. Gotcha. That's super fun. High school level, right? Is that what you said?
I grew up in a small town. I was a 4-sport athlete because there was just sports to do. But then I played junior college basketball.
Okay. And are you coaching? What level are you coaching?
Oh, yeah. So my 15-year-old's now in high school, so I don't coach him anymore. I coached him all the way from about 2nd, 3rd grade to about 7th. And then my 6th grader, now going into 7th, I've been coaching him for 4 or 5 years until this year was the first year there's another coach that he's on a different comp team right now.
Okay. Cool. That's something you do for fun. I was going to ask you in a bit, like what your hobbies are, what lights you up to do. And it sounds like coaching is one of those things.
Yeah, coaching. I love teaching, giving back. I mean, in this day and age, you know, when I grew up, there wasn't really club teams. Now, like if your kid isn't on a club team, you're behind. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty serious. It's $200 a month usually for club teams. So it could be pricey for some families. And so what I've done is I never charged anything, you know, and so I did. Now, granted, I wasn't the best coach. I wish I was. I always, like anything else, everyone needs something to work on. My thing was time. And so I could see that my business was getting really busy. And that's why I then said, okay, it's time to pass the torch to a different coach so that they can be ahead and help out my son, you know, with his regular practices and games every week.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So let's talk commercial real estate. You kind of do everything but multifamily, it sounds like. Is there a reason for that? Or, I mean, obviously it's great to pick a lane and stay in it, but You picked a few lanes, and multifamily is not really one of them. So what's your reasoning behind that?
So a couple things. Number one is at one point I had close to about 160 doors in
Okay.
multifamily. So I've done multifamily.
Yeah.
When I first got started, the guy that I mentioned that was my very first mentor, his main thing was the D class type.
Yeah.
And not the best way to learn multifamily.
Right.
Like I was literally, renting to, hookers, pimps, that sort of thing. And so the double digit cap rates, 15 or above,
Yeah. Wow.
and a lot of things I didn't like about it. Right
Yeah.
now, then when I started selling those off and I started getting into the C class, value add to the B class and that type of thing, I started liking that more. But the one thing I started doing is once I learned triple net, I liked how I valued those and priced those then more than multifamily, in my opinion. Now, I then at that point, I've always said I don't say no to multifamily, but it's just something I price differently. I raise money differently. And I like to work with the business owner on helping their business succeed in my center as well.
Yeah. Gotcha. So it was really more about kind of almost like a gut feeling. It sounds like as you did different types of projects, D class, C minus, C, even C can be very, very rough. And it's just, you put a business plan together and something happens on the property, and a crime that's really ugly or something like that, it can just blow everything up. And your tenant base, like you were alluding to, is tough to, we're just really, really tough to work with. They're tough to turn. They're tough to, we bought a number of C properties and are currently repositioning, I guess, 4 of them right now. And you look at the pro forma, you look at your business plan, and you're like, all we got to do is turn this tenant base, right?
Yeah.
Well, that takes time. It takes a lot of effort. And you're trying to change a culture at the community. And that's kind of like turning an aircraft carrier around in a lot of cases.
It is
yeah.
As far as like LPs, I always tell any type of limited partners that's investing in any project, even if they're asking me, hey, what do you think about this project? I always say, hey, definitely want to look at the pro forma, but like in your case, Tate, is look at the operator.
Right.
You got to see, is the operator, does he or she have enough time and resources and references to then turn a property? Because if they don't, and they're someone that's just starting out, it's good to have a sponsor that kind of understands that side of it and can give good mentorship, so they're all turning the project for not just for the GPs, but the LPs, because that's your lifeblood, right?
Yeah.
I've always said, like, if I lost $100,000 of an LP, that means more to me than my own $100,000,
Sure.
And so, because that's my lifelong opportunity of investing into deals. If I screw up my first deal or 2 or 3, I got to go find new LPs for the 4th one, right? So
yeah. So it sounds like, do you do a fair amount on the capital raising side of things?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. What would you say in this space is like your wheelhouse or your superpower, as you're doing these deals?
So my top 3 asset classes literally just kind of moved and shifted this last about 4 or 5 months is retail, medical, and dental. Even though medical and dental is kind of one and the same, they're kind of priced differently the way we do it.
Okay.
Because we have a network of dentists that are looking for space, are looking to get more than one location.
Right.
And so we have a whole database. Like, for instance, we picked up a property, put it under contract, had due diligence out for maybe, I think, 90 to 120 days, got a little under 7 figures. And it's going to be, we're putting the dentist in there. It's going to be worth maybe 2.5 million, probably a couple months after we close. So nice. We're starting to do a lot of those ones. We're hoping to do more. I mean, anyone would love just to kind of hit those base hits nonstop, right?
Right.
but that's kind of like our wheelhouse is
Okay.
we usually stick in those three pieces. I do look at flex industrial, not as much as I did 2 years ago. It's kind of shifted to those three asset classes.
Yeah, I mean, COVID really ignited the flex industrial craze.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's happening in Utah very much, and other hot markets, because e-commerce picked up so much. So people need small warehousing space that they can office in as well to run e-commerce companies. And so that's a unique opportunity that I know about. We looked at a couple development projects in the flex industrial space, and I just kept coming back to staying in our lane.
Yeah.
We, as many listeners know, and you may know, Josh, we really started in the single family space, flipping houses, spent a lot of years doing just that, and not doing it at scale, and doing a good job on the houses and making good money on them. But as so many of you know, and why so many of you are in the multifamily space, it's the dickens to scale single family. It's, I think it's nearly impossible unless you've got just a really killer project manager and a really great GC. But we're such passionate believers in multifamily at this point, and the shiny object syndrome is a real thing for us entrepreneurs, and because we're just naturally wired to seek opportunity and seek problems, right? Like, the bigger problems you solve, the more money you make, the more impact you make, the more lives you can change. So we'll occasionally get distracted. These days it's more with multifamily development projects. So we're currently working on an acquisition in Columbus that has some spare land on it that we could probably build 70 units on, with awesome amenities. And but we're looking at it pretty seriously, but we would also be bringing in a partner who's done a ton of development in Columbus and is a Columbus expert. And so we will be able to really stay in the lane that we're in, even if we do this project, because we're leveraging partners and partnership. So what do you think, Josh, your personal skill set or your personal superpowers are in what you do?
Connections. That answer wouldn't have been my answer 3 years ago, though.
Okay.
When I kind of realized from that book, Who Not How, on what my superpower is, and people have they've asked me that in the past. I would say sales. I can't remember what else I'd say. Definitely not like accounting, bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I realized that because I was like, wow, for years, I grew up in a small town, and like I've said, I was a sports athlete, but I didn't have that many friends, really, really deep, good friends. And those came in my mid to late 30s, Okay. And so I feel like there was a lot of time I was always trying to grasp, like, I really want some close friends, And when I really found my group, and my group is entrepreneurs, they were a lot more open to talk with. And I realized, wow, I can put things together, like having a card game or, like a networking event, and people would show up,
Yeah.
And I realized, wow, that is my superpower. Now I need to exploit that. And I need to get other people that are good at accounting, that are good at underwriting, all that kind of stuff, right? I was trying to do a lot of it. And I was mediocre at best at some of it, And then once I realized, wow, this is my superpower, I'm just going to go hit this hard. That's when things started changing for me.
That's awesome. I love that. I think this is absolutely key for anyone at any stage in their business, is to do a very honest evaluation of what your superpower is, or maybe you have a few superpowers that work together. And this whole idea of knowing yourself, right? Knowing yourself first, so that you can double down on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses, leverage your weaknesses, often with partners or employees, or, you know, outside consultants, even VAs. That is absolutely key in my book. And the fact that you started to get successful around, you know, just after the time that you identified this connections thing and relationships game that you were interested in playing isn't a surprise to me, because you focus on what you're good at, you smile a lot more, your energy's better, you feel better, you sleep better, because you're having success, right, at what you do, and you're not in Josh's case, accounting and bookkeeping like wasn't his wheelhouse at all, wasn't his superpower. It's not mine either. I think we're probably pretty big picture guys, both of us, and kind of lead from, you know, the captain's quarters up top. But you know, at the same time, like I know that my superpower is very similar to yours. It's kind of resourcefulness, and that almost all your resources in real estate in this business come through other people, through these connections, through these relationships. And you just can't overstate that. Like, this is such a relationships game. It's a long game. We talk about that a lot. Like, you're meeting people, investors, brokers, you know, potential partners. You're meeting them, and you want the relationship first before you start talking dollars and opportunities and all that stuff. You want the relationship, and you want it to be authentic, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want it just for the sake of doing business with that person or whatever. But, you know, ideally you're a very cool person yourself, and you're out attracting other cool people that are, you know, high level and go-getters, and you know, the more you surround yourself with those type people, the more successful you're going to be. You know, the whole concept of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You know, I can't argue with that. Can you?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, about 3 or 4 years ago, when I kind of got into masterminds, you know, that's when my level started going up. And I'm obviously still friends of people that I was hanging out with 5 years ago. It's just, if I wanted to level up myself, my family's financial plan, you know, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But then all of a sudden I just started looking around. I'm like, wow, when I'm around these people, I'm actually thinking much higher. I'm a visionary, like you're kind of alluding to the visionary side. That's another superpower. I think those two, networking and being a visionary, always thinking like how much bigger this could be. Now it's just always trying to utilize that with people I'm around, you know, and people that I'm around as in like partnerships or friends, like, you know, like for instance, if someone came to me today and says, hey, I'm going to spend $20,000, $40,000 on this education for real estate or stocks or whatever, what's my first thought? Isn't like, oh no, they're going to rip you off. It's like, well, tell me more about what you're planning on learning. I want to try to help, you know, it make bigger. Granted, the questions might then turn them into, this might be a scam, but that'll be them coming up with it, not me. Right.
Yeah.
But I would want to be supportive on, okay, well, what are you kind of looking for? What's your goals in this thing? And just trying to help their vision, because they're wanting to do it to do what? To change something in their life, right? That is the number one reason why they're doing it. It isn't just like, oh, I just have some extra 40 grand sitting around. I thought I just learned some stocks and options.
Right.
There's a reason. The reason is you're wanting to change something in your life. What is that?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Gary. I was listening to somebody recently, and the question came up, you know, if you had 50 grand to spend in real estate, how would you spend it? And of course, everybody's thinking about, well, you could use it on a down payment,
right?
That sort of thing. And I personally, I'm like, use at least a big chunk of it for education and resources. Like, and if you're if you're, you did your mentorship at 100K, I mean, that's really high level. And hopefully number one, that you got a lot out of education out of it. But number two, ideally, I think with a mentor, you're also getting resources, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm mentoring someone, they're going to have access to all the resources that I have. And that's just how I work. Like, I don't hold back at all. Like, I'm just kind of on the table. Like, this is how I can help you. These are all the things I know, and these are all the resources I have and have been influenced by, and everything else. So, a good mentorship should really get you going. Like, this is a little bit of an unannounced preview, but I may or may not be starting a coaching program probably at the end of the summer. And when I say may or may not, I will be. And it's going to be an all-out, full frontal effort with individuals who either haven't done their first deal yet, or have done a few deals and aren't growing the way they'd like to, or scaling the way they'd like to. Like, the very tangible goal of this coaching is going to be getting that first deal done, or leveling up in whatever way is most important to you, right? And so, and like you said, Josh, to your point, like, everybody does these things because they want something in their life to change, and they want to get better at something. They want to improve their finances or their business skills or whatever. And I think knowing, again, knowing yourself, like knowing your big why, what it is that fires you up, that makes you super excited to get out of bed in the morning, is another key in all this. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but the mentorship thing, I think, is like, whether it's a coach, whether it's a coaching mastermind, which was what I did early on in our multifamily business career. We did a coaching mastermind with Corey Peterson. There were 15 of us in the group, and we all got together and masterminded on each other's business. And then Corey just kind of broke things down for us and said, this is what you should be doing. This is your next step, or your next few steps. Really challenging you to level up here. And that was how I got educated and learned the business. And when you learn the business and you're around people that are doing deals and they're literally showing you exactly how they're done, that instills confidence. And you need to have that confidence to go out and find the brokers and find the deals and get the deals done, right? Like, that, I think that's what a lot of people's biggest obstacle is the space between their ears not being adequately developed to have the belief that they can get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a day that Josh had never done a deal before, and there was a day that I had never done a deal before, but there was also a day that we both believed that it could happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think mentorship isn't just like learning the skill, right? It's the confidence, the push. When I coach basketball, I usually tell them, I tell the parents this: if you're wanting a coach that's just going to give them a participation trophy at the end of the year, I'm the wrong coach. Because I don't want to be coached that way. I want people to tell me what I'm doing wrong. I mean, people that are investing, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, they're not investing that to just be told like everything is hunky dory. They want to be coached. They want to be pushed. They want to get, gain more confidence. And the people that are investing that the very first time, it's because for years they have the coulda, woulda, shoulda mindset, but now they're around people that have actually made those risks,
right,
taken those chances. It's kind of like I'm actually writing a book right now called Take Your Shot.
right.
And that's that's my biggest thing, is taking your shot, and
Yeah.
having the right people around to help you take your shot. It's like coming back to basketball. Is I told this to my son last night, and I told him about this a dozen times, but I reminded him last night or actually my daughter, practice makes perfect. And I said, my college basketball coach told me that's the wrong saying, because you could be practicing the wrong thing for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we use perfect practice makes perfect. Let's work on getting the shot in the right area and the elbow in the right place and practice that way. It's going to feel awkward for a long time, but then it's going to be perfect practice versus, having your elbow out for a long period of time. And then finally someone 5 or 10 years later says, what are you doing? No one's told you this,
Right.
And so anyways, I know I went off a little tangent there, but I get pretty passionate about helping people, mentorships, masterminds, because I've gone through it, and I know the mindset that goes up into investing the money, to investing the money, waiting for the money, and then seeing what the result is 5-10 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's super exciting. Let's talk masterminds for a minute. So you and I were in the Tim Brotts. I don't think, are you still in the group? I don't believe you are.
I'm not.
Yeah.
No.
So, well, we still are. My team is still in the group. And there's a lot of masterminds out there. There's multifamily specific masterminds. There's entrepreneurial masterminds that are more kind of general business and general personal development type work, which is pretty much what Tim's is. Although Tim is a multifamily guy, there's a lot of single family folks and wholesalers and other types of investors in that mastermind. Are you currently in a mastermind?
I'm in 3.
Yeah, I figured you might say something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I did leave Tim's only because I wanted one that's more business mastermind versus real estate. I just decided I wanted a real estate and then 2 other business ones. And that's why that was the only direction. I met some great people. I'm still friends with a lot of them from the legacy family. And I definitely, give props to Tim for that, for introducing me to those people and, give me the confidence on other stuff in outside of just real estate that he encouraged me to do.
Talk a little bit about like what you get out of a really good mastermind, like maybe one of the ones you're in now. You go to these maybe 2-day, 3-day events. What is it, a few times a year kind of thing? Is that how it's set up with your current masterminds?
Yeah. And because I'm in 3, it's been kind of busy this last 12 months. But so in other words, like sometimes I can only make 1 or 2 days of the 3, right?
Okay.
And so I might even need to scale 1 back just so I can give 100% attention to at least 2. But no, the biggest thing that I always take away from it, and I think a lot of people, if they are doing it for the first time, you said this earlier, I always use the term thrown up on people is, if you just go there and listen and tell people what your goals are and what your vision is, what your plans are, you'll actually be surprised the response you get from that versus like telling them, oh, I do multifamily, I'm doing these parts, I'm starting to get into Florida, Denver, all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, okay, great. Because they're thinking, how can I help you?
Right.
So now they're like, okay, I guess I need to go find someone in Denver and Florida to help you. No,
Right.
Just tell them what your visions are, what you're planning on doing. And then they're thinking like, okay, well, let me kind of help you what maybe you're doing right or wrong there. That's the constructive criticism I want. And so I've definitely probably the first 1 or 2 times I changed that mindset because I saw what others were doing that were even doing way better than I was doing. They weren't telling me what they were doing. They were asking me, and then I would ask them, and then that conversation, developed into a friendship, and then later on to a partnership. So that's kind of my take on masterminds is I'm taking someone's advice to what I was thinking that was a good plan to now it's not a good plan. It's because this X, Y, and Z type of thing. So
yeah, and I think to a couple points that you just made, like I feel like in a mastermind, if you've got 2 things going into the mastermind, you're good. Like one is your vision, and I love the book Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. as a company, we have a vivid vision that we wrote, which is probably a 5-6 page document that basically replaces your mission statement and your vision statement that a lot of companies have. This is like all those two things on steroids, where you've got a 3-year vision is how he coaches you to do it. That's very specific, right? You're going through and you're talking about your office and what the vibe is at your office and your team values and really who you are at the core. And again, this just comes back to knowing yourself. And if you have that vision really hashed out and know it really well, and just kind of keep that in your back pocket at a mastermind for those conversations that Josh is talking about, that's what's key. That's what people want to hear. And then the other thing is coming from a space of contribution, right? So if you're always listening from a space of how can I help this person that's talking to me right now? What do I have? Who do I know? What books have I read? Like, what's going to help them in their vision and their leveling up? If you go and basically focus on those two things at a mastermind, you will 100% move the needle in your business and in your life, in my opinion. Those are very, very powerful conversations and friendships, like you said, Josh, that develop over the course of those conversations. You know, like, again, that's that spirit of contribution of helping is really what makes the world go around. And this commercial space is full of like go-givers, you know, like, I'm sure
it is. I've really appreciated it with that, actually, of finding ways to give back. And I was with someone in Phoenix last week, and I mean, his mastermind, he wanted me to come be a guest speaker, and he showed this check on the stage that he's donating $100 grand to his charity. Wow. You know, and it's because he made goals for himself in order to, and made it so other people can contribute to it. I just thought that was awesome. And awesome to see, you know, and those are the things I love. And, you know, you said this earlier about like all the different spaces in commercial real estate, multifamily versus commercial or retail or whatever. Yeah. The one thing is, I always say is like, if there was one perfect one, we'd all be in that. Right. And so it's one of those things that we can all debate why our side of the fence is better than the next side, but we really do need each other. You know, like Columbus, Ohio, you talked about, that's actually probably one of my top retail places I'll be, you know, going into this next 12 months. Nice. Great market. So that when you talk about that, it just tells me like, okay, you're seeing the same type of data in population and growth than I am. Right. Yeah. And so that's why I think there's so much synergy within commercial real estate on the different asset classes for that reason. Yeah.
Well, you know, on that note, we're almost out of time here. This went super fast for me. I looked at the clock and couldn't believe how much time we've used. But on that note, you mentioned you're looking at moving into Columbus as a market, which is so smart. It's, as you know, like the retail capital of a lot of companies, and is distribution, logistics hub, and all that stuff. It's very dynamic there. But what's the future hold for Josh over the next 2-3 years?
So I fortunately last year I started a side business, and now it's one of the biggest in the country. And basically what, you know, I always joke, I do CRE, commercial real estate, and ERC now. Yeah. You know, employee retention credit. And so it's the last COVID relief program stimulus money, like under PPP and EIDL, yet, you know, Forbes did an article that 80% of businesses qualify for this, yet 7 out of 10 don't even know about it. And so I started getting to that. So what the future holds for me is really pushing that, because I have another 2 to 3 year runway with that while I continue my commercial real estate business. But both of them I'm already seeing is going to do really well. And so that's really that hard push, that last sprint with ERC. And then, you know, by that time, my oldest will be 18. Him and my 12-year-old have already shown that they want to get into real estate, commercial real estate specifically. Because at first they were like, hey, should I start flipping homes first? And, you know, being that I've flipped homes, you don't need to go flip homes to get
Right.
into real estate at all.
That's 100% right. I love that. Yeah.
It's definitely a myth out there.
Yeah, it sure is.
And I like to always dispel that, because
Yeah.
if you're thinking, if you're a listener, it's like, man, I want to do this or this, or, you know, I might want to have Tate coach me, you know, at the end of the summer. You know, the one thing you should know in your mind is like, you don't need to do residential, do commercial.
Right.
My
Yeah.
recommendation, because I've done both, and sounds like you have too, is I would, if you have a little bit of idea that you want to do commercial, I would say start commercial, you know, and that would be my thing over residential. Now, I might, you know, get some texts from my buddies that do residential and do really well that, no, that's not what the advice they'd give. We're still friends, but
Yeah.
that's definitely the direction I want them to go. I'd encourage them to do. I want them to do whatever they want, but they've already kind of shown that interest. And so that would be my next passion, is really kind of help them out, getting them to the next level, the next 4 to 5 years after that.
Yeah. Terrific. That's awesome stuff. Well, Josh, this has been amazing. I really appreciate this time you spent with me and my listeners. A couple last things. If people want to get in touch with you, either about commercial real estate, triple net, retail, et cetera, or the ERC Employee Retention Credit Program, what's the best way for people to reach you?
2 ways. I think one is Instagram. My handle is the Josh Z, and my phone number is 801-668-2000. Someone can text me, call me anytime. If you just want quick advice, you know, by all means, hit me up. Like, you know, I'm very serious about really the help at first versus just throwing up on people.
Yeah.
That's actually helped me out a ton. It helps me sleep better at night, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely want to help as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a common thread with guests on this show. And, you know, you go back through these episodes, at the end, almost every single person is offering the listeners help. And that's huge. And I hope that you guys take advantage of that. As you guys probably know by now, I have a Calendly link on our website, which is investwithgreenlight.com, that you can book a session with me to just kind of get to know each other, and no strings attached, talk business and talk your business in particular. And we can brainstorm a little bit, talk about next steps to kind of help you level up. Like Josh and I both love that stuff, and we get a lot out of it ourselves by doing it. And we like we do it because we like to see people grow and progress, and makes us feel good. And we all know that stuff comes back around in one way or another at some point. So Josh, any final words of wisdom for listeners before we let you go?
I would say what comes to mind, right? I mean, you always want to say what's on the top of your head. I mean, take your shot. You know, get it done, get the right people around you, find the right people, you know, join networking groups. That will really boost your game. And that's very inexpensive.
Yeah.
You know, people always try to say, how much do I need to invest here or invest there? Like, you can literally get, you know, I do Top Golf networking events almost every other month with about 50 to 75 real estate investors, you know, be part of it. So,
yeah. And, you know, join a mastermind, get a mentor, just to repeat those items. A good mentor, you know, you were talking about not doing single family, going straight into commercial. A good mentor can really make that a reality, in my opinion. The right mentor, the right fit for you. So Josh, thank you a ton from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you being on here. It's been a while. I've wanted you on the show for a long time now, and we finally got it done. So I'm very appreciative.
Thanks, Tate. I appreciate it too.
Yeah, you bet. So listeners, thank you. Again, if you're listening to the end of one of these, you're doing good stuff. And especially if you're really engaging and like writing down some takeaways or some notes, this is the kind of thing that is important to be doing all the time, sharpening the saw and getting the specialized knowledge and education. You got to take action too. You got to take your shot, in Josh's words. So with that, we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you on the next show. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.